Hello folks, hope everyone is well. So today I thought let me speak about Venus and some of the challenges that can come with the placement of Venus in your chart. So let's get started. Now, Jupiter is said to be the guru of the devas, of the gods. Venus is said to be Daitya Guru, guru of the demons. Essentially, devas represent your Rajasic, Sattvic tendencies, and the Daityas represent your Rajasic, Tamasic tendencies. Yeah. Jupiter, as we often hear, is considered to be the best natural benefic in Jyotish. He's synonymous with luck, fortune, wisdom, spirituality. And so if we have a well-placed, strong Jupiter, we could count on him for wealth, for children, for career prosperity, for wish fulfillment, and of course for past life good merits coming back into our life as rewards. In a woman's chart, Jupiter gives us a glimpse of her husband and her child. Jupiter can, of course, grant you a solid foundation in life to achieve your highest dreams. Being the guru, Jupiter can motivate you to jump from form to formless in your quest for spiritual knowledge. In fact, he will help you reach that springboard from which you can take that leap. He will also prevent you from falling. But of course, Jupiter has its limits. Jupiter cannot make you jump towards your inner self as effectively as Venus. Venus is known as Shukracharya, and Venus can help you with the final leap toward that inner self by testing you to the extreme. One of the reasons it gets exalted in Pisces, the sign of letting go, the sign of moksha. So let's speak about the powerful Daitya Guru Venus, its position, its importance in your chart, what happens when it gets afflicted. Venus's methods are unique and unconventional, unlike Jupiter, which leans more towards the traditional and the ritualistic. So, living a conventional life toward the achievement of your goals can promise the treasures that Jupiter signifies. To understand this, let's take a glimpse into the astronomy. Just a glimpse. I'm not a scientist, so bear that in mind. Jupiter's role is protective, and we can see that. We can see this in the astronomy, in that it has protected life on Earth for hundreds of millions of years by shielding us from comets. Jupiter provides the Earth with its most precious ingredient. More than 2/3 of Earth is covered with water. Because apparently Jupiter had flung water into the inner solar systems, creating the conditions for life on the Earth as we know it to be possible. Yeah. And thus in astrology, we regard Jupiter as a guiding light, the guru, the protective force, the provider for the essentials that make life sustainable, such as wealth, prosperity, children, husband, divine knowledge. Divine knowledge, of course, it's the higher vibration of Jupiter. Whereas if we see Venus's role in astronomy, it's far from predictable. Venus actually is known for its exceptional brightness in the night sky, and it is an alluring sight to see. Behind this facade, however, is a world of storms and infernos, unlike anywhere else in the solar system. From a distance, Venus is very similar to Earth, especially in the size. Up close, it's a very different story. Venus, being the hottest planet, makes it completely inhospitable. The magnetic flux of Venus is opposite to that of Earth, as its rotation is in a reverse direction as that of the Earth. So the North Pole of Venus is actually the South and vice versa. So if you were on the surface of Venus and you would see the sun, it would rise in the west and set in the east. And in the Shiv Purana, there is a famous story, of course, many people know about it, where Shukracharya is doing his tapasya, being upside down over a tree, and is later ultimately awarded by Shiva the secret knowledge of Sanjeevani Vidya, right? Making him the most unique of all of the planets. The story of Shukracharya being upside down and doing tapasya can be, of course, correlated to its rotation being reverse from the Earth, despite resembling Earth on the surface level in size, mass, density, and volume. Yeah. So if we come back to the astrology now, even if your goal was not self-actualization or self-knowledge or reaching moksha, right? Aspiring for moksha, or having the ability to deeply transform yourself, because ultimately that is coming back to life, dying and coming back to life. To bring back to life that which has perished. It could be an idea. It could be your life in some way, your connections, your home, your career. It could be rejuvenating your life, just the physical force, the prana. Venus's boons in the chart are essential to live a meaningful life, even if none of these are on your radar. I mean, even if you don't aspire to do any of these things that I mentioned, because ultimately, if you are deprived of the Venetian pleasures in life, then you will be compelled to search for the meaning of life through some of these methods. So what are these Venetian pleasures? On the mundane level, on the day-to-day level, that which makes life bearable, meaningful. Well, Venus represents sensual pleasures, of course. Sweetness, the juice of life, without which life would feel meaningless, mundane, pointless, difficult to bear, right? And what are those? Well, Venus is the Karaka of the 7th house. 7th house is just desire, right? It's also all types of relationships, all types of relationships. It also rules the 2nd house, which is sensual pleasure, food, luxury, family, money. So without a good Venus in the chart, life can feel like drudgery. And in extreme cases, very difficult to bear. Venus being a significator for the 7th house, we have to see what is the 7th house. It is relationships, it's contracts, committed relationships. It's also how others generally perceive you, your face to the world, right? Because it's the mirror of the 1st house. And in this way, we can also see fame from the 7th house too. If you have your own business, then a good 7th house and Venus are important in the chart. 7th house is desire. It is the seat of desire, the core of desire, and not surprisingly, it represents your other half. It's also business dealings, partners, buying and selling, the marketplace. Relationships here are contractual. So you do for me and I will do for you. So in this way, examine where Venus sits in your chart, as well as what do Taurus and Libra represent and where do they fall in your chart. What houses? Taurus signifies all the pleasures of life, of the senses. It signifies art, poetry, speech, culture, beauty, music, food. Second house is also wealth, luxury, prosperity, healthy bank account, as well as good family relationships. And Libra is relationships, the marketplace, dealing with others in harmony. Venus puts all of this in the spotlight in the chart, right? Venus is called Shukra, meaning sweet. In this way, it symbolizes the juice of life, the pleasures, all the things that we live for. It's through these experiences that we feel alive. Whereas the experience that Jupiter offers, wealth, family, children, career, they're all foundations that we depend on to have a comfortable life, to fit into society, basically. The Jupiterian gifts help us fit into society. But all of this, of course, comes with big responsibilities also. So it's a trade-off. Your family, wealth, children, career may bring you fulfillment, but on the other hand, may also feel like a burden. You have to make efforts to maintain this at all times, right? Of course, family, wealth, children, and career are essential, but the gifts that Venus brings are in and of itself pleasurable. They're what we dream for. They're what we dream of, long for, hope for, aspire for, live for. We bear the grunt of life in order to have just a sliver of hope of tasting Venus's gifts. So losing these pleasures or being deprived of these pleasures can indeed make life feel empty. And this is what makes Venus more powerful on the mundane levels. If we don't have access to such pleasures, what is the purpose of all of our achievements anyway? Because it's the relationships, the sensual pleasures, the material pleasures that help us to bear the burdens of life and help us to look forward to the future. That's when Venus puts us to the test. By depriving us of material and sensual enjoyment, we can really feel defeated, right? We can't hide behind our career, our family, and our wealth. That's the foundation that helps to sustain us, of course. But how long will you want to do the work to maintain these things if there's no pleasure in life, there's no sweetness in life, there are no desires to seek in life, to fulfill? So in this way, Venus shows us the path to awakening the inner self if you tap into its highest vibrations. But for everyone, even if you don't tap into the highest vibrations, Venus is important to see for relationships, all types of relationships. So check the strength and the placement of your Venus. Is it helping you create good relationships, or is that Venus facing some afflictions by malefics, which is leading to lack of money, lack of love, lack of good relationships, inability to procreate? We see that too when Venus is afflicted. Just the inability to seek your desire, to enjoy life, to connect with others in a healthy way. Venus is the yoke planet for Capricorn and Aquarius lagnas, so it's an excellent planet for both of these lagnas. However, it is a functional malefic for 6 out of 12 ascendants. But despite that, if you have a strong Venus, you'll be able to create a comfortable life for yourself with all of the beauty, luxury, enjoyment that Venus can bring. It's very easy for Venus to be afflicted in the chart, though. One reason is actually that Venus moves relatively fast, right? And therefore, it can be caught in the nodal axis with the fiery planets Mars and Sun, and even with Saturn quite easily. Venus being afflicted in this way is commonly seen in charts, far more than Jupiter. According to the classic Shastras, the best remedy for Venus affliction or a badly placed Venus is showing respect for the women in your life. And if you reflect on this, you will realize that it is very easy, actually, to be disrespectful towards women. And I'm not speaking about extreme behavior. toward women, right? Like harassment and violence and abuse, or even gender inequalities that women face. But if you see, women tend to be subjected to ill treatment far more easily than men, for many reasons. Some are cultural, some are societal, some are biological that you can't do anything about. And if you notice, even by other women, it is easy to take out your frustrations on women in the form of complaints, in the form of abuse, right? And women are subjected to this by other women as well as men. More often than men are. So let's address the Venus afflictions that show up frequently in a chart. Yeah. I'm going to focus here on the Venus conjunctions, and this will be a general overview. So for instance, if you have more than one planet in conjunction or aspecting Venus, then you have to combine the analysis, right? First, let's speak about Venus and Jupiter in conjunction or an aspect. I don't think the triangle aspects of Jupiter and Venus are problematic, but certainly the 1-7 aspect can be, right? Venus and Jupiter may not seem like a troublesome combination, but it certainly can be, because Venus and Jupiter have very different natures, right? Jupiter's sattvic energy expresses itself best in traditional, conventional, ritualistic ways. So a strong Jupiter will help with bringing a comfortable life, a good family, good advisors, guides, even a guru. Whereas Venus is Rajasic in nature and expresses itself in a more unorthodox way through desires, through wants. The Venus-Jupiter mutual aspect or conjunction can create deep internal conflicts because of this. On the one hand, you desperately crave spiritual nourishment, but there's no clarity on which route to take. So this can result in deep dissatisfaction in life. People having this conjunction are often religious and intellectual, and they have enough wealth. On the outward level, can be very easygoing, generous, well-off, usually well-off in life, in a good profession, inclined towards religious pursuits as well. But on the other levels, on the inner level, there can be a deep disconnect with the desire of the mind and the body and the soul. Like a disharmony. And where does it play out? Well, you guessed it, in relationships. So it can result in a disturbed married life. The spouse can have a completely different value system, for example, and expectations from life, which may cause differences that are hard to reconcile. There are chances of no marriage. There are chances of a late marriage, separation, divorce. You cannot just see this one conjunction or aspect. You have to see what else is going on in the chart, right? This combination does not, however, in and of itself, promote marital happiness. The two in mutual opposition in your chart may churn relentlessly between the spiritual and the material. But when all the planets mature in your late 40s, the soul is more at peace and accepts this situation and realizes what is important to them. It also depends on what dasha you are going through in your late 40s, early 50s when you have this maturity happen, yeah? Next, we speak about Venus connecting with Rahu. It could be a Venus conjunct Rahu, or it could be Venus getting aspected by Rahu, right? When Venus connects to Rahu, it creates a passion for pleasure. It brings extravagance, amplified attractions, over-the-top indulgence. It also brings a taste for the unusual, the exotic, the forbidden. In fact, this is a common placement for extramarital affairs. Now, as with everything that Rahu touches, it will bring falseness and deceit and dishonesty. So it can result in making false promises in relationships, being dishonest, being exploitative, depending on where the Rahu-Venus Yuti takes place, right? And I think certainly this would be the case in Virgo. In a man's chart, this can mean someone who is boundary bending and opportunistic with women. It can bring many relationships with women as well. And that's certainly true when Rahu and Venus are activated. Impulsive relationships, magnetic attractions, particularly in Rahu-Venus, Rahu-Mercury will result with this signature. There will also be a strong foreign element in the relationship partner. There could be something unorthodox or unusual about your partner, about your attraction, your connections. For instance, there could be big age gaps, social, religious diversity, distance between the two, physical distance. It creates a lot of longing and fantasizing for others, even if you're not in a relationship with this person. In its highest dignity, and when well placed, provided that the Dharma Trikona is strong in the chart, then we can see this resulting in passion for progressive matters in life, including advocacy, civil rights, diplomacy, equity, and equal rights, fighting for discrimination, for example. So you do really have to look at the entire chart before you make a conclusion, right? It can also result in women being lucky for you, bringing to you opportunities for mega wealth creation, especially. Venus connecting with Rahu is manageable, right? They're both actually Rajasic planets. They're both Rajasic energies, and therefore they blend well together. Rahu will, in usual Rahu style, exaggerate the Venus qualities. So it can give an abundance, but what you end up with may not last unless there's a Saturn or Jupiter connection there. Yeah. So what happens when Venus is with Ketu? Conjunct Ketu. This is a tougher connection than Rahu-Venus because here you have someone who is bored and dissatisfied in relationships, indifferent, aloof towards partners. They can also make empty promises. There can be scandal, there can be disgrace, there can be dissolved trust in relationships. And that way it can be similar to Rahu-Venus. Yes. With Venus-Ketu, it can lead to infatuations that feel like love, but then they quickly dissolve, or you detach in some ways. You will also face rejection in love, and yet you will be enamored by the very people that reject you. If you do by chance get the person that you've been longing for, you will ultimately feel a disconnect from them. Again, Jupiter's aspect helps a lot to balance this. No. There could also be separation in relationships, or it could be that the union for some reason it's not recognized in society. There's something odd about it. Like again, like a cultural divide, or they don't understand each other's language, or a huge age gap. Right? It can also lead to interest in pornography, sex addictions. But again, you have to see what else is going on in the chart. If Venus is stronger here between Venus and Ketu, then it could easily lead to two marriages. So how about Venus and Saturn? Well, you hear the usual about this, right? With this pairing, they're both friends, so it's a good conjunction. Well, it depends. Good for what? And here again, I'm speaking about not just the conjunction, but also the aspect, particularly the 1-7. Though, of course, the aspect energy is always less potent than the conjunction, right? That's the standard rule. When Venus and Saturn are together, it can create sorrow in relationships, disappointments. Your needs are not being met, right? Because Saturn is absorbing the energy of Venus. So your partner is neglecting your needs. be in a decent relationship, as it appears to most people, but feel terribly lonely with that person that you're living with. In earlier life, before Saturn's maturity, before the age of 36, there's a good chance that you would have problems with your self-image. You're not satisfied with it. It could be your appearance, height, weight, complexion, anything. Even though there's no problems with these things, perhaps, but you're not satisfied with it. There's some kind of a complex. There can also be a lack of self-love, self-acceptance, and therefore you would attract those that are not good for you or to you. Because again, the people that are not good for you or to you are not going to be able to meet your needs. So it goes like, ultimately you're attracting that which is promised in the chart with Venus-Saturn. You can attract critical partners also, or those that are simply unavailable, whether it is emotionally, whether it is physically, and perhaps you just keep waiting for them to be available, and it doesn't happen. This conjunction is where you question whether you are with a soulmate or a cellmate, as at times the relationship can feel stifling, depressing, and burdensome. For some reason, you are just not able to escape it, though. It's a conjunction that can lead to abuse in a relationship. And in a man's chart, it could be that he simply doesn't like women. In Nadi astrology, where Venus is also considered to be the sister, it can result in problems for her. And there can be distance or separation in that relationship also. But there's a boon with this conjunction, this aspect. In fact, once, I'll share this with you, once I heard an astrologer say with this conjunction, is that it's the curse of a woman, but the blessing of a goddess. And I think in some ways that's true. But what I was referring to is that it gets better with time. You get better with time. You will get more handsome with age, more beautiful with age. You will know how to make and save money as you grow older as well. It's certainly good for the bank balance. You will also attract much better partners, more distinguished partners as you age. And that's certainly the case. That's certainly the case if Venus and Saturn are in good dignity, right? So the partnerships will get better with time. Here, check both the D1 and D9 to confirm. Of course, it's inevitable. Wherever Saturn sits, it's going to bring delays, right? So here you will experience delays with marriage, delayed gratification with everything, especially where it's like what houses it's impacting in your chart. You will have to you will have to work hard to create wealth as well. But with this signature, you probably like to work, especially if it's happening in a earth sign. In a man's chart, you can be attracted to women who will help you build wealth. And that can easily happen if it's in a dignified sign, right? If it's a dignified conjunction. Material life is good with the signature, even with the conjunction and the aspects. In relationship, connections are based on financial stability. That's important to you. And it becomes more and more important to you as you age, even if you have your own wealth. In some cases, the relationship can be based on class or social arrangements rather than real affection. But that depends on what's going on, what else is going on in the chart. It depends highly on your Dharma Trikona. But again, with time, the relationship grows into love. And if well placed, there is mutual respect and an enduring relationship that can outlast others. The other thing that can be commonly seen is that there's a noticeable age gap with this. For instance, the person may be older than you in experience or in age. And after your 40s, like late 40s, I would say, you will attract younger partners with this. The person with the signature, of course, we have to see what else is going on in the chart, is usually the one that works harder to keep the relationship. It's a tough connection, definitely, but it gets better with time, and you will get better with time. You will age gracefully with this signature in your chart. You know, the key here with this connection is not to take yourself so seriously, though that is exactly what you will end up doing with this, especially with a conjunction. So let's speak about Venus and Mars. What happens when Venus is with Mars or aspected by Mars? Now, in Nadi, this is actually considered good for attracting others. For instance, if Mars and Venus are in 1/7 from each other, then there's a balance of the yin and yang. Generally, with this connection, you can be self-centered, though. It can be, and you can be drawn towards sensual pleasures, and that would be the basis of the relationship, for example. Right? Like there's a good physical compatibility, and that's why you're together. If it's in bad dignity, it can lead to affairs outside the marriage. It can, of course, result in fights, breakups, separation, because Mars's impulse is destructive. Wherever it sits, Mars brings that Scorpio energy there, right? So there is the sudden endings and beginnings in relationships with this combination. Death and rebirth angle is strong with this connection, and that plays out in relationships. Here you can make decisions that are not practical in relationship partners, and thus don't lead to long-lasting unions. And in this way, it can you can attract people and be attracted to people where the relationship is short-lived. So short-term relationships. It can bring a lot of short-term relationships. Again, it depends whether the aspect or conjunction, where it takes place, right? Because it's a lot more manageable in earth signs, where you can get more stability in the relationship. Mars with Venus will create situations to break or test the union. It can lead to unusual tastes in relationships and sexual behavior if in bad dignity. Mars will make you attracted to quick money-making schemes, including gambling, stock market, trading. Again, if connecting in earth signs, it can lead to good wealth portfolios. Yeah. It can lead to massive wealth very quickly. Unlike Venus-Saturn, which is like a slow building of wealth and assets over time. But in relationships, it can lead to fights also over money matters. So it's always better to have your own bank account if you have this. If you have this in your chart. Investments separate from your partner, if you have this combination. Venus conjunct the Sun. This can occur commonly, right? Because Venus and Sun tend to travel quite close to each other. So this again can lead to breaks and separations because, like Mars, fire is impacting water here. And thus it can lead to impulsive words and actions in relationships. But unlike Mars, the Sun impulse is to purify rather than destroy. And that's the difference. The major theme, however, that can result from this is that me versus us dilemma whenever there's a Sun and Venus involved. The Sun is the individualistic principle, whereas Venus embodies the relationship principle, and often there's a struggle between the two. And this can accentuate that struggle. Sun is fine being alone, similar to Mars, and therefore compromise and diplomacy are often not present or difficult with this combination. If the conjunction with Venus and Sun is too close, Venus loses its power, right? And this can lead to obstacles in getting married. It can lead to the loss of your partner. It can lead to an untidy environment where you live, a disregard for the clothes you wear, the food you eat, if it's in a difficult Rashi, if this is taking place in a difficult Rashi. Like I would say Cancer would be an example. If the Sun is stronger, it damages relationships. But if Venus is stronger, then this can mean a low self-esteem and you can be a doormat in the relationship. Depending on which sign it takes place in, this can also make you intolerant of your partner's flaws. So you end up replacing partners too quickly, which is something that can happen when Venus is in Leo as well. So next up, we have the Venus and Moon conjunction. At first, this seems like a good combination, right? Venus and Moon. They're two watery planets, Jal Tattva element together. But I have found that this can make you overly sensitive in relationships. When you're not getting your needs met, you start to seek other relationships, thinking that the next person will fill that void, and the next, and the next, and on it goes. Reason is simple. Venus is Rajasic, Moon is Sattvic. Venus love is transactional, it is give and take, it is the embodiment of Libra, a balanced contractual agreement. Moon is unconditional, idealistic love. So here your expectations of relationships are unrealistic as you are seeking this from your partner. And in fact, Venus can behave this way in the water signs, even Pisces, where it gets exalted. I don't think that that's the best place for dealing with one-on-one relationships if your Venus is in Pisces. In fact, I would say for a man, especially Venus in Libra, the man will be more compromising than if he has Venus in Pisces. So Venus in water signs, Venus with Moon, expectations of relationships are unrealistic because you're just too idealistic in love. Yeah, Moon is nourishment. So you automatically think that this should come from your relationship partner. And it should, to some extent, right? But when the partner doesn't provide it, you look elsewhere. The other problem with this aspect or conjunction is that the Moon is unpredictable. It has a wavering quality. So this can mean a constant, like, on and off energy in the relationship. Right? Venus in Cancer can bring that too. So it can lead to breaks and separation, and then you're back together, and then you break up again. Like that thing can happen. So now the last one, Venus with Mercury. So Venus with Mercury, I mean, as you know, this one happens very commonly, right? Because Venus and Mercury travel close to each other. It's a good combination. Venus and Mercury is a good combination. And I would say in every sign, they do well in all signs and they uplift each other. They're both Rajasic planets and therefore highly compatible. Mercury always takes on the qualities of the planet it associates with. So here it will make you a sweet talker, charming, diplomatic, agreeable, just agreeable in relationships. Provided, of course, there's no malefics there. And the better the sign, the better the Rashi, the more dignified, the more this would be the case. This, of course, also forms the Lakshmi Narayan Yoga, right? Leading to wealth, happiness in relationship, good fortune. So see what house is getting impacted by this conjunction in your chart to know where you will perhaps get this fortune in its dasha, right? This combination can give very good skills with making money, especially through communication-related professions, including authorship. It can make someone a very astute business person. It's not usually a troublesome conjunction. You won't see it in aspect, right? Because they're too close to each other. But overall, this is a very good connection, Venus and Mercury. So, hope you enjoyed that. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you, folks. That's all for now.